What's up? Ghost Fictions is here, and we're back again. This is a story where Issei was a true celestial dragon god emperor. Hunted by his own kind and betrayed by one he held dear, Issei comes to a new dimension to call his home. How will the supernatural world react to this newcomer and more specifically the female dragons? Follow Issei as he begins his journey on Earth and start his life over again. But will the past come back to haunt him? But before we start, please consider subscribe to the channel and give this video a like. Don't forget to check the description for more informations. Now, let's get into part 1. Prologue. As far as I can remember, we were always on the run. We never stood in one place for a long time, maybe a few months at the most. It wasn't until I started my journey into adulthood that I finally understood why and who. The people that were chasing us was our own kind. Wanting to capture me. Why? Because of what I possessed. You see, when a dragon is first born, that is the most memorable moments for parents. The infants let out a burst of energy which will eventually give way to the power that they will have. Since dragons are mostly energy that has taken form, the energy, or rather your life force, changes to accommodate the power you possess. For example, if you were to possess the power to manipulate fire, then your energy will change into an orange color. Also, if you had the power over ice or water, then it will change to a blue color. Mine was different. My energy stayed the same. This brought upon the conclusion that I had power over the cosmos or something close to that. Which is why the government, or rather the council, wanted to take me from my parents in order to use me for their own gain. I would later find out that they would have extracted my life force and use it on their own military force. Too much power for one person to control, they would always say. Which brings us to now. After running for almost all of my life, my parents and I are trapped. Nowhere to go. They placed barrier seals all around the vacant planet so we couldn't teleport out, and with an army this big we wouldn't be able to win. Also, it restricted the use of our dragon forms. The only thing I could do is just fight and swing the sword my father gave me as we fought for what seemed like forever. I have had very limited training with my powers, so I could only use the energy in my body to power up my punches and swings. To top it all off, I haven't even begun my training in my dragon form, so I couldn't go into that either. At the end of the day, it was a good fight that we put up. We decimated about 10% of their overall army, but we were running on empty. It wasn't until my mother stood protectively in front of me, although if I didn't notice how her eyes seemed to darken in hate at the thought of anyone coming near me. I also didn't notice how the way she was protecting me seemed more than what can be called maternal. It wasn't until I saw my father give a sideways glance at us that I did see a crude smirk take over his face. At first I thought I just imagined it, but when he came over and stood next to my mother, he did something that struck me to the core. He rammed his sword through her chest. Blood spurted through the wound, and I instantly felt a growl coming from my chest and punched him square in the jaw with all my strength. To my satisfaction, it sent him skidding about 30 feet before he fully stopped. My mother was pushing her hand over the open wound to desperately stop the bleeding. Why? She gasped out at her husband, who smirked at her while idly flicking her blood off of his blade. It's simple. I was offered something better. He's our SSS son. Mother yelled out as she coughed up an abundant amount of blood. I rushed forward, dropping my sword, and ripped off a long strip of my shirt and applied pressure to her open gash. Son? Haha, you know better than I do that he was only our son while he was forming. After that he ceased being my son. I could only glare, both in fury and a bit of confusion as to what he was going on about. By the way, you two seem to have not think of him as a son anymore. You think of him as a shut. As I watched him about to talk once more, I had enough. Hey. How dare you do something so cowardly? I expected much more from a war dragon than to inflict a wound during a surprise attack. Where's the honor in that, you bastard? Honor, you say? In battle there is no honor, only battle. That's all that matters. My glare only turned darker as I felt more adrenaline pumping through my body, mass exhaustion completely forgotten. Looking at my mother, who was now laying down on the ground with only my arms holding her in a sitting position, her skin deathly pale. I felt something break within me. I failed to notice how a green seal on the back of my right hand appeared before breaking. I also didn't notice how my body started to absorb the energy of the cosmos and how my aura flared to life. The only thing I knew was that I had power pumping through me. I felt good. The feeling of powerlessness was something that I hated the most. Knowing that I couldn't do anything, or much for that matter, was a bitter thing to swallow. Although, now was different. It wasn't long before my aura reached the core of the small planet we were currently on, and I had an idea. Encircling the planet's core, the gravity of the planet suddenly multiplied as the enemy army felt it harder to stand. I glanced at the barrier to find that it was blinking before multiplying the pressure once more and watched as it disappeared. where both my mother and I were fine from the increasing gravity, but the rest were not. This was my plan. By increasing the gravity of this planet, I would make it so great that the planet would collapse on itself, thus creating a black hole. My plan seemed to be working as the planet shook violently before large fissures cracked open the crust. What are you doing? Are you planning on killing yourself with her? My faith. No, that man said to me. I ignored him and continued to increase the gravity of the planet, but it wasn't until I felt myself become lightheaded that I winced. Looking around at my continuing carnage, I saw that the troops were now teleporting themselves out of the area, clearly not wanting to be caught in whatever calamity I was causing. The only people left on this planet was both my mother and I, along with that bastard. Speaking of the man, he looked like he was about to charge, but a cloaked figure appeared right next to him. I couldn't see his face, but I could tell that they were talking, and the only word I managed to pick up from the bastard's mouth was elder. My eyes narrowed dangerously, but the cloaked figure put a hand on the bastard's shoulder before teleporting away. I gave a deep growl before I felt a cold hand touch my cheek. The increased weight of the gravity suddenly changed to its initial state, although the damage was already down. Looking at my mother, I saw she was giving me a warm smile. That's enough. Issei. You've done good. She took a rasping breath and mustered up all her strength. I didn't want to think it, but I knew that these were going to be her final moments. I should have never taught that asshole sealing. To think that he sealed your powers, and for who knows long. Don't talk, mother. I will find some help, just don't speak. I said, trying to convince her when in actuality I was merely trying to convince myself. No, you should already know. That I will die. I should tell you some things though. First, you shouldn't harbor any animosity towards our species. We are prideful beings, but that isn't the only thing we think about. Who knows? You might find some love. Her silver eyes seemed to dull at the last part. Damn it, if only I wasn't so weak. If I had more control of my powers, then I know I could. Then get stronger. I know you can master your power. Haha, you always were a fast learner when I taught you about our history. You may be able to even teach yourself. I grit my teeth as the planet's crust all caved into towards the core. The piece of rock that we were laying upon was started to crumble. I promise. My eyes watered as a few tears fell onto her ashen face. I will find a way to bring you back. I know how stubborn you are. You won't be breaking that promise, huh? Then let me give you a parting gift. Her eyes slowly fluttered shut, but not before a small silver ball appeared in her hand, and it sailed towards me. I felt it absorb into my body, and a vast knowledge of sealing, tactics, strategies, and some more that I couldn't yet identify came into my mind. I was broken out of my thoughts as the rock we were laying on disappeared, and we were sent plummeting towards the newly formed black hole. My eyes landed on her limp form before giving a silent goodbye, and with the last of my power opened a portal that will send me somewhere. I didn't care where, because anywhere was better than here. As my aura died down, I felt the exhaustion come back full force and I blacked out. The last thing I saw was the now swirling vortex of the black hole, swallowing up the corpse of my mother. Third person POV. Darkness was all that Issei saw. He could feel himself floating forward, so he knew he wasn't stationary by any means. Suddenly the whole area illuminated in a vibrant display of colors that seemed to move and swirl on its own. As he looked around the empty space, he finally noticed that he wasn't floating, but that he was riding something, if the giant scaly body he was laying down on was any indication. It wasn't until Issei noticed that this being was extremely powerful when he sensed its aura. So I opened up a portal and went through after. That happened. I am in unknown territory and this being is a. Issei looked at the scaly being that seemed to be 100 meters long and the two large dragon's wings. Wait, dragon. Okay, so this is a dragon, and by the structure and smell. Definitely a female. Am I in a different dimension? That is possible, but the question is, why did she save me? Better find out, I guess. Issei looked over himself and found that his body healed from the previous wounds, and his energy was back to its max, not to mention he could feel the comfort of the cosmic energy that he recently connected to. Getting up from his spot, he made his way towards the dragon's head. He started to think about what if scenarios if things went south. Just as he was nearing the front, the first thing he saw was a giant horn, and when he finally arrived on the head, he saw the horn was on her nose. Gathering some energy into his feet, he jumped forward and landed right on her snout before looking at the dragon's eyes. She kept flying, but he could see that her slit golden eyes were glued onto him. He had to admit that her eyes were very captivating. Hello, I hope you can understand me. Issei had to confirm that his species' skill to talk and understand any language worked, because if it didn't, then this would make this harder. Yeah, I can hear you. Came a gruff female voice, although it seems that she was talking to him telepathically. That's good. Are you the one that saved me? Yeah. Her uninterested voice rang through his head and he narrowed his eyes slightly. Why? PCH, I have my reason. Is that so? Issei said with a huff before he got an idea. How about we exchange information then? I'm listening. I bet you're curious as to how I got here, right? And I am curious as to why you saved me. You're right about me being curious. This place is the void and without protection everything will dissolve into nothingness, yet you are not gone. Fine, I'll take you up on that offer. Alright then. Ladies first. Issei watched with a bit of mirth as the dragoness widened her eyes and looked at him with a sharp look. How did you know that I was female? She demanded while Issei frowned a bit in confusion before smirking at her. Oh? Isn't it obvious? I mean, I woke up near the end of your spine so it wasn't hard to notice your curvy hips, and not to mention I could tell that your chest is bigger than male dragons I've seen. To top it all off. Well, I am also a dragon so I can smell you. He said with the same smirk, and unknown to him the dragoness felt her face heat up ever so slightly. Not to mention your eyelashes are longer and your body is slimmer. Finally, the last thing that cemented my conclusion were your eyes. What about my eyes? The dragoness in question didn't know why she was so curious about him. Just in a few minutes of talking with him and her interest in him just skyrocketed. Well, how do I say this? He muttered and looked at her eyes with a smile. They are very entrancing. Like they just draw you in. Heh, your mate must be very lucky to have someone as beautiful as you. Issei said calmly, unaware of the dragoness's inner turmoil. Beautiful. That's the first time someone ever said that to me. I don't even know his name yet he already has this effect on me. What can it be? His aura, that what? It's very soothing. Yet violent in a way. Not orderly, but it holds sadness. Is he putting up a facade? Wait, why do I care? He really is interesting. The dragoness thought to herself before speaking to Issei telepathically once more. I don't have mate. Anyway, since you offered I won't decline. I put you on my back because you interested me. My name is Issei. You have interested me, Issei. Not many can do so. As a matter of fact, you are the first to do so. Also, my name is Great Red. Another thing, would you mind taking off that mask you put on yourself? You noticed? Issei said as he lost his smirk and his face went into a calm expression. An aura never lies. Now since I told you why I saved you, then tell me where you came from. Let's see. I came from a different dimension. It seems I wasn't wanted there anymore and I opened up a portal sending me to a random location. Whether it dimension, universe, planet, or galaxy. Why? I was being hunted down by their army. The council wanted me for the power I possessed. I learned from my mother, who overheard from a soldier, that they plan to extract my power and use it for their own troops so they can expand and slaughter their enemies. They sound like a bunch of assholes to me. Though for them to want to kill you for that. What exactly is your power? Issei narrowed his eyes into a menacing glare at her, who was surprised at the drastic change in personality despite setting up a mask beforehand. You tell me yours and I tell you mine. Sure. You first, pretty eyes. He smirked at her contained surprise. What, you thought I didn't mean what I said? Great Red was glad for her red-colored scales and clicked her tongue while averting her eyes. Whatever. I have power over dreams and illusions. Dreams? Issei looked at Great Red questioningly. Like you can make a dream a reality sort of thing. You're perceptive, has anyone told you that? Just one. But could you? Let's say bring back a dead person. If the person dreams strongly for it, then yes, I could. Who did you lose? My mother, actually. The bastard that is my father betrayed us for power in the end and stabbed her right in the chest. He turned his head and stared at the empty void for a few minutes before sighing. On second thought, never mind. Oh? Why the sudden change? Because I want to be the one to do it. I will find a way to do so. Continuing on, you also have illusions that should come in handy from time to time. Yeah, they do. And you? I have power over the cosmos. Huh? Great Red asked in surprise and blinked once at him. I have power over the cosmos. For example, the energy, suns, stars, gravity, and so on. But I need to train because at the moment I can just use cosmic energy to power certain parts of my body like fists and feet. Great Red didn't respond as she was deep in thought so much that she stopped her flight and just stood levitating in the air. Hey Great Red. You okay? Power over the cosmos. No wonder those assholes wanted to kill him, his power is infinite. Eternal even. Just like mine. Her eyes landed on him once more and she began to slowly smirk, revealing her razor-sharp teeth. No question about it, he is the only male dragon that could equal me in terms of power. Depending on experience he may surpass me, but he seems new to his powers, so I win in that regard. For now, that is. When was the last time I trained? I can't remember. Anyway, that's what I will do. I will go with him and hopefully she won't bother me during that time. I may have to share him as well. Ugh. Great Red. Are you alright? This seemed to bring her out of her thoughts as she began to fly again. Yes, I am fine. Just processing such a power that you possess. Speaking of which, what are you going to do? If you want to go to Earth, then I can easily send you to a safe location. Earth, huh? That's the only habitable planet in the solar system. I sense humans. As you call them. As well as various supernatural creatures. Great Red, would you mind explaining the supernatural world to me? All of it. Grunting to herself, she told him all about the supernatural world to the best of her knowledge. He listened intently as she explained the different factions that include the Shinto, Norse, Irish, Yokai, Greek, Vampire, and even more. Then she told him that the three special factions that are the angels, fallen angels, and devils. The reason for them being different is because the three are interconnected. The devils were stationed in the underworld and were ruled by the four great Satans, or better known as Magus. The four leaders are Lucifer, Asmodeus, Beelzebub, and Leviathan, and the devils thrive in the dark. Like most of the other factions, they could utilize magic circles. The fallen angels can also be located in the underworld, which no doubt creates tension between them and the devils. They were ruled by Azazel and his other advisors. Even though they fell from heaven due to impure thoughts, they still retained their abilities to utilize light-based weapons. Like most others, they had their own set of spells and system of magic. The angels were last, and Issei was a bit irked by them, not in fear but more out of disgust. Most of it was directed at their leader, who was the biblical god. They lived up in heaven, and he is the self-proclaimed chief deity of all gods. The angels were able to use light-based weapons, and their holy power is deadly towards devils. Although, the main reason why Issei didn't quite like the biblical god was because he holds prejudice against snakes, but mostly dragons in particular. It was true what his mother said, all dragons aren't the same, and he came to realize that as Great Red told him how God would slaughter any dragon that crossed his path, be them innocent or not. All under the jurisdiction of ridding the world of sinners. He even boasted how he was going to kill Great Red. So what about dragons? Issei asked after the long explanation. They are round and about. Don't they have a faction? No. We are feared yet respected, and that seems to be enough for us. Then what about our standings, strength-wise? Well, first we have the low-level dragons, followed by the high-level dragons, after that we have the 6 great dragon kings, then next there are the 2 heavenly dragons, dragon god exceeds the last, and then finally we have the true dragon. True dragon? Wait a minute. That's you, huh? He asked and Great Red smirked at him. Got it in one. Right now I would say you are in between low-level and high-level dragons. The good thing is that your potential is limitless, so you can get as strong as you want. Works for me. That just means that I have more levels to go through before I reach someone of your caliber. I should let you know that once that happens I want to fight with you. Not for the title of true dragon, but for fun. It would be nice to fight someone all out, which I doubt you do a lot. Be right on that. Alright, once you believe you are strong enough, then come and challenge me. I have denied challenges by the plenty, so I'm expecting you to come ready for a fight. Ha. If you defeat me, then I will gladly proclaim myself as yours. Oh? Then the least I can do is offer something in return. I wouldn't mind doing something that you want me to, if you win. Be it to kill someone, destroy a nation, or even a planet. Yufufu, this works in my favor either way. If he wins, I'm his. Yet if I win, he's mine. Alright, then it's a match. I did forget to mention the evil dragons as well, but they rarely show themselves in plain sight. Evil dragons. Do they love battle and are brutal or something? Yeah. They are vicious dragons that would rank themselves between the power levels of the 6 dragon kings and the heavenly dragons. Although one of them can rival the heavenly dragons. I got a lot of people to beat then. Meh, it will be fun, I guess. Well, I want to thank you Great Red for telling me this very useful information, and if your offer on sending me to a safe place is still open, then I accept. No problem, and yeah, I can send you, but I want to go. She stopped as she sensed another presence enter the void, and she instantly narrowed her eyes dangerously. That damn bitch just has to ruin this. Actually, never mind. Get ready because I'm sending you now. Issei prepared himself, and not a second later a tear in space sucked him in before closing. Great Red stopped flying and released an irritating sigh from her maw. Back for another battle. You should know by now that you can't beat me. Nevertheless, you picked a bad time to bother me, and so you better prepare yourself. Office. Great Red spoke as her voice trembled with power as an unknown purple and black energy began to take form. The tearing in the space opened up and Issei was spit out, but managed to land on his feet. Looking around, he saw that he was on the side of a dirt road, and out in the distance was a small town. Closing his eyes, he quickly searched the area for any sign of supernatural creatures, but found none. Sighing a bit, Issei made a checklist, with the most important being to find a place to train. Let's see, I need a spacious area that is also out of view. Maybe I can find a cave over by those trees. Walking at a leisurely pace, Issei trekked through the tall trees and large shrubs, while also looking at the unknown animals with curiousness. Then something caught his eye, and he made his way over to find long weeds that covered the entrance to the mouth of a cave. The only question now is, how big is it? Conjuring up a flame in his hand, he used that as a light and ventured into the darkness. There were many twists and turns before he came into a large open room. A small smile of satisfaction appeared on his face for a second until it went away, and he threw the flame to the middle of the room, which increased in size. Now. So based on my mother's information on seals, I just have to mold it with my power and apply it to something. Her knowledge on this was extensive. Gathering some of his energy in his hand, he molded it into a seal that would conceal his presence, as well as any power that he will use to train. Although it is only as strong as the one who is powering it, so as he grew in strength, so would the seal. Slapping his hand against the wall of the cave, it glowed an array of colors before becoming transparent. Nodding to himself, he put a hand on his stomach and was quite surprised to find out that he wasn't hungry, despite not eating before he came to this dimension. Brushing off that thought, he sat in the middle of the room and took a meditative position. As he felt the cosmic energy flow into him, he smiled in anticipation. Time skip. Damn. A woman screamed out as she ducked past trees and jumped over rocks. She was limping heavily on her right foot. Looking to be in her early 20s, she has long blue hair along with blue-green eyes, but an irritating scowl marred her beautiful face. Her pale skin was a bit dirty, although she had cuts on her arm, leg, and even a small puncture wound in her stomach that was leaking blood through her white shirt. It wasn't until electrically shaped whip came out from behind her and wrapped around her injured leg. Yelping in pain, she fell down onto the grassy ground and struggled to get up before she felt a jolt rack through her body. Well. This should teach the bitch to deny Ajuka-sama. A man walked out along with 4 more men, who all had bat-like wings protruding from their backs. The leader had black hair and blue eyes. He wasn't wearing a shirt, exposing his chest to the world, and was wearing a blue overcoat with dark pants and shoes. The woman ignored the man and glared at the sword that was strapped to his back. Hey boss, you going to kill her now? One of the other men asked, but the man chuckled as his eyes scanned her body. With hergless curves, an impressive bust, and a plump rear, she was indeed very gorgeous. Keep up the paralyzing whip. Well, I have some fun with this one. Wouldn't you like that, Chaos Karma Dragon? Tiamat was now glaring at the man with such coldness that it would have froze the man solid. She watched as he came towards her and roughly pushed her onto her back before looking over her like a piece of meat. You wouldn't even be thinking that if it wasn't for that damn sword you have. She growled out, which caused the man to laugh loudly. Oh, this thing. It's amazing, isn't it? Just a bit of dragon slayer magic and you instantly have a weapon that can kill the so-called might dragons. Now do me a favor and scream, because after I'm done having fun with you, I'm going to let my boys use you too. Who knows? Maybe I will allow you to become my personal pet afterwards. The man put his hands on her hips and rubbed his hands up and down her body. She still glared at the man in defiance, while also gritting her teeth in anger. These damn bats. Always so greedy, and yet even I can't defend myself against them. Why am I so weak? Tiamat thought in both anger yet sadness as the man reached for the bottom of her shirt. However, just before he could fully grasp it, a hand grabbed his roughly. Following the hand upwards towards the unknown man, she widened her eyes at him. The unidentified man had short brown hair and stood at about 6 feet 3 inches, 5 inches taller than her, while having a light tan to his skin. He was wearing a black hooded trench coat with a matching shirt, combat pants, and combat boots. On the hand that he was holding, the devil's, was a tattoo, but she could only see a head of a dragon. Although it was his eyes that captivated her. He had black orbs, but inside his iris was flecks of gold that slowly swirled around his pupil. To be honest, it looked like stardust to her, and there was also shiny blue, white, red, and gold dots that looked like stars that rotated as well. Not to mention that he exuded a powerful aura that she found attractive, almost like it wanted her attention on him. Who the hell are you? The devil snarled while the brown-haired man simply rose an eyebrow before assuming his calm mask. I was in the area and came only to find that you were going to abuse this woman. Of course I wasn't going to let that happen. This woman is Tiamat, the Chaos Karma Dragon, and she is now my pet. Get out of here before I kill you. As a matter of fact, you already pissed me off. Boys. Kill him. The trench-coated man simply looked at the group of devils, who prepared magic circles, and lazily flicked his head upwards. The darkness that was already looming the area seemed to rush towards the group of devils. Tiamat was the only one who could see the oncoming danger and watched as it grabbed hold of them and moved up their bodies, covering it in a cloak. The devils screamed before they were fully cloaked, and then the darkness crushed them without hesitation. The man flicked his head again, and the darkness receded, revealing pools of blood and entrails. Who were you talking to again? The man in black asked in cold humor as he punched the devil and sent him flying backwards into a tree. Groaning, the devil blinked away the stars swirling in his vision and got up before taking out his sword. The weapon had a blue handle with a silver blade and let off a golden aura. Tiamat's instincts were telling her to not get hit with that blade due to the slaying property to dragons. The man simply smirked and gave a come on gesture to the now angered devil. Said man charged amateurishly and swung his sword. Noticing that the devil was using too much strength in his swing, the man simply hit the flat of the blade with an open palm. The added power caused the devil to lose his balance, and before he knew what was happening he was in a headlock. The firm jerk to the neck and the devil fell limp as the man looked down at the corpse. Tiamat looked on as the man picked up the sword and crushed it in his hands like it was paper. I hope he isn't an enemy because I don't think I can beat him in my current state. Tiamat. The man said as he walked until he was in front of her and crouched down. Looking at her wounds as well as the burned area where the electric whip was wrapped around. Fortunately, once he killed the devil group the whip disappeared. Regaining her composure, she let off a cold aura and looked at him strangely. Who are you? Why did you save me? The name is Issei. As to why I saved you, I merely helped out a friend in need. Friend? I never met you before. True. But I mean species-wise. You're a dragon and so am I. We have to look out for each other especially in these kinds of situations. Now hold still, I'm going to heal your wounds. Issei's hands glowed a gold aura as she looked on at her wounds, slowly stitching themselves back up. He's a dragon. Now that I focus on his aura he is telling the truth about that. Such a calm, soothing aura. Gah. Snap out of it. Despite scolding herself, she couldn't help the blush that made its way onto her face. She couldn't help it, he was practically drawing her in with an aura like that. There. Now do you have any place to go? Huh? Oh, no. No, I don't. You can stay with me. I don't mind the added company, although I do travel a lot so I can't guarantee if you will be staying temporarily or permanently. I guess it wouldn't hurt, but you try anything and I will not hesitate to attack you. Please, I wouldn't dare harm a fellow dragon without reason. Especially such a lovely dragoness like you. What? Her blush came back full force and she glared at him, but the blush didn't make it look intimidating. Don't say things like that so suddenly. Hahaha. Glaring at me like that only makes you cuter, Tia-chan. He asked playfully and watched amusedly as her face turned into the equivalent of a tomato. I'm done. Now let's get going. Issei bent down a bit and picked her up bridal style, which got him a bewildered look. What do you think you are doing? I can walk perfectly fine. No, you can't. One thing about dragon slaying swords is that it will place fatigue upon the dragon, thus leaving them more vulnerable to attack. While I got rid of the effects of it, you are still exhausted after being exposed to it. Just rest and we will be at my place in no time. Opening her mouth to retort, she closed her mouth and sighed tiredly. He started to run through the trees and she let herself relax in his grip. Looking at his face, she saw him glance at her and give a smile before looking ahead. He's different than the others. Other male dragons would just ignore someone in need since they mainly get mates from other races. But he didn't do that. Now that I think about it, he may be the only male dragon that attracts female dragons. I'll be sure to keep that in mind. Tiamat thought before she felt herself get drowsy. Fluttering her eyes closed, she unconsciously snuggled into him as she listened to his steady heartbeat and eventually found herself fall asleep. When he saw that the dragoness fell asleep, he teleported himself to his new home. He had abandoned the cave he originally settled in because it was no longer a cave anymore. During his 3,000 years of training he had utterly destroyed the whole cave. On the upside, he had long found out how to create things from nothing, so he made a new house on the top part of a mountain. Appearing in front of a large 2-story silver mansion, he made his way into the house while admiring his handiwork from the time he made it. The exterior of the house was made from silver, while the walls inside were white gold. When you walked in, the living room had a couch and chair, then connected to it was the kitchen dining room. The other rooms on the first floor was a giant training room that he made. And the second floor were about 5 rooms and 3 bathrooms. All pretty big in size, and the same can be said for the bathrooms as well. Teleporting himself to one of the extra rooms, he gently set Tiamat down on the linen bed, only for her to clutch him tightly. Looking outside the window, he guessed it was about midnight. He sighed before trying to put her down once more. He was successful in doing so, but he got an angry groan. Issei. Can you stay with me? Tiamat opened one of her eyes tiredly, and he sighed a bit before shrugging his shoulders. Sure. He replied before taking off his boots and trench coat. Now with his coat off, Tiamat can't see that on his right arm was a tattoo of a black dragon. The head started on his wrist and it twirled up and around his arm. While part of it was obscured by his shirt, she could assume that it continued to his shoulder. He's handsome. She idly made note as he went to the other side of the bed and laid down on it while pulling up the blanket for both of them. "Good night, Tia-chan." His teasing voice caused her to flush a bit before she smirked. "Night, Issei-kun." She replied as silence fell over the two for a few minutes. "Issei-kun. Thank you for saving me. If you didn't show up, well, I don't want to think about what would have happened." "It's fine. Don't dwindle in the what-ifs, Tia-chan. It only causes unneeded stress. Also, don't mention it. I would like to think that other people would help a woman in help, but I can't be sure." She nodded at his words before he chuckled a bit. "You're the third one to say thank you for saving me to me." "Third? Who were the other two?" Tia-chan. I didn't know you were the jealous type." I'm not. Just curious." One of them you should know personally while the other one you probably heard of. I saved one of them from getting killed by some evil dragons. The other one I saved from her father since he was planning on using her for his own gains." "Damn, I have some competition then." She mumbled to herself with a frown. "What was that?" "Nothing. Still, thank you. I know our kind aren't really like due to our pride and power, but that doesn't mean we are all like that. You are a prime example. You were holding back in the forest and yet you didn't show it off, you just did what was necessary. You're different from other male dragons and other men in general. Actually, the main reason why I was running away from those devils was because I rejected an offer that one of them gave me." "An offer?" "Yeah, he wanted to use me for a new system he had in mind. Something about creating more devils that were lost in the war. I should have expected him to send devils after me, and who knows if he would have forced me to be a part of his idea." "What was his name?" "It was Ajuka. He never gave a last name, but he is obviously in the 72 pillars." "Well, don't worry about that. As long as I'm here I won't let anything happen to you, Tia-chan. I don't want a cute little dragon like you to get hurt on my watch." "Idiot." "I may be an idiot, but I'm speaking the truth." Yawn. "I'm tired." "Sweet dreams, Tia-chan." "Why yeah. Sweet dreams." "Issei-kun. You really are interesting, an enigma really. I wonder if I could be an active person in your life." "Damn it, Tiamat. You just met the guy and yet he already has this effect on me. He is definitely mate material. But he saved two other girls. He said I might know one personally, so I can assume that they are both dragons. I wonder who else he has saved or going to save. Either way I have competition for him. Doesn't matter because I will not lose." Tiamat thought with a determined smile before falling asleep once more. Issei opened his eyes to find himself in the void, although it was more like his spiritual presence that is in the void. Turning around he saw Great Red and smiled at her as he floated up to her large snout. "Hey, Red-chan. What did you want to talk about?" he asked with a slight tilt in his head. You see, ever since he first left the void he would occasionally be called to the void when he was dreaming thanks to Great Red. She never told him why he can't physically visit her, but she did say that it wasn't safe yet for him. That piqued his curiosity but didn't question her further. The two would talk about miscellaneous things and his training. She also took to talking to him in her real voice instead of telepathically. "Nothing much, just wanted to know how your day went." It really was funny in his opinion. Issei would hear about the feared dragon of dragons as being merciless and cruel, or about her being extremely lazy and not caring about anything. And yet she was here asking him about his day. Then again, he has never seen her angry before, but she has had some lazy moments. It went mostly well until the last of it. I trained, ate, trained some more, and then explored a new town that was about 100 miles from my house. It wasn't until I saw an injured woman getting assaulted by a group of devils. Turns out that woman was Tiamat, the Chaos Karma Dragon. I'm guessing they used some dragon slaying magic because she wouldn't lose to a group of bats. You're right. She said that she got an offer from a devil by the name of Ajuka who wanted to use her to test a new system he had in mind, but she denied and he sent devils after her. Most likely in anger, but he also gave one a sword that had dragon slaying properties in it. She was injured by it and then restrained by a paralyzing whip. If I didn't show up she would have been sexually assaulted or worse, raped. I took pleasure in killing them and then destroyed the sword. She is in my house as of now. Ajuka? I may be wrong, but I think he is a devil of the Astaroth clan. I'll look into it. If he even thinks about going after her again I won't mind plunging a bowl of light down his throat. So protective already? Then what about me? If someone tried to sexually abuse you? Great Red nodded her head and Issei chuckled a bit. I know for a fact that would never happen, but if it did I would probably end up blowing up the planet. Only to put it back together again. Oh, you really do care. She teased with a smirk while Issei huffed. Well, of course. We still have our match to fight, so you aren't dying or getting injured in any way. I want you 100%. What about you then? You got hurt a lot both from training and battles. Although not as much now than you did when you first started. I have to get stronger, so I am bound to get injured. You on the other hand is already strong enough. Anyway, what's up? You haven't called me like this for a century. I've been busy with a little pest. I haven't got around to talk to you until now when I got a break. No matter how small. Also, I should tell you that the two heavenly dragons are fighting. Again. I still have no idea why. No one does. Great Red said with a snort. The thing is that they are nearing the battleground of the war between the three factions. Oh. No doubt the biblical god is going to want to kill them, and the others might join him. What will you do? Obviously I will go and intervene if necessary. I swear you have a hero complex or something. I do not. I'm just going to fight only if the guys get too injured. You do know that Drake and Albion are female, right? Not until right now. Okay, well the plan is still the same. Only interfere when necessary. You know with that hero complex of yours you may end up attracting an angel or maybe a devil. Oh please, Red-chan. I wouldn't be with an angel or devil. I'm more of a dragoness guy, mostly because female dragons are the perfect combination of beauty, strength, bravery, and intellect. Like you for example. What? What? I'm stating a fact is all. Hey, I just noticed now, but are you blushing? Issei asked with a smirk when he noticed a darker tint to the dragoness's cheeks compared to her original color. No. I am not. I don't blush. Really? I think you would look absolutely adorable blushing. I say. She barked out as her cheeks darkened significantly that you could clearly tell she was blushing. Hahaha. Red-chan, I'm playing with you. One of these days I will get you back for all of this. It was then that she noticed the area cracking and frowned. It seems that you are about to wake up just in time as well since the pest is back. I'll talk to you later, Issei. Yeah, I'll see you later, Red-chan. Issei's eyes fluttered open and yawned before rubbing his eyes. Looking out the window, it was already past sunrise. Great Red's words replayed in his head as he frowned and tried to get up only to find out that he couldn't. Noticing the additional weight on his chest, he looked down to see Tiamat sleeping on him. Smirking teasingly, he gently poked her cheek until she woke up. Luckily she already seemed to be waking up beforehand, so he watched as she groaned and opened her eyes tiredly. Good morning, Tia-chan. Have a nice sleep. Good morning. And yeah, I did. Best one I had in a while. She trailed off as she saw who she was sleeping on and flushed in embarrassment. Haha, thanks for the compliment. Now usually I would tease you about this, but I have to go. Oh? Tiamat asked in surprise and saw him get up from bed and go over to his coat and boots before putting them on. Yeah, I have to go. Deal with someone that I should have dealt with a long time ago. You are free to leave if you so please, and don't be afraid to take some food with you. I already have more than enough as is. Patting down the dust on his clothes, he walked towards the door and opened it quickly. I'm going to make myself a quick to-go meal before heading out. It was nice meeting you, Tia-chan, and I hope we can meet again in the future. Also, don't worry about your devil incident. I will be sure to keep an eye out for any devils that head your way. He said and walked out of the door. She stood rooted in her bed while thinking over what he said to her. He's going to leave. Although he is coming back, right? What if he gets hurt or if he doesn't come back? No, this is Issei-kun we are talking about. Actually, I don't even know how strong he is. The devils he killed were only middle class. Either way, I am not leaving him. Even if I have to force him. Jumping out of the bed, Tiamat ran through the door and towards the kitchen, where she saw Issei just finished preparing a sandwich. Oh, hey. You hungry? I can make you something if you want. No. I want to stay with you. Like in the house. I don't mind, but I'm not always here, so. No, I mean with you. I want to travel with you. I'm not doubting you or anything, but are you sure? Especially right now. What do you mean? What I mean is that right now the two heavenly dragons are in conflict but are nearing the battleground of the war between the three factions. Do you know who is there that will love to kill Dragon Albion? The biblical god. Tiamat stuttered over his name in slight fear at the man. The guy loathed dragons and wouldn't hesitate to kill any that crossed his path. Even though she was a dragon king, the strongest out of the six, she knew she was not ready to take him on and win. Then she figured out what Issei was implying and widened her eyes. You plan on going there? Dragon Albion are one thing, but combined with the biblical god and most likely the four Maus is completely different. What if you get hurt or killed even? That's what I'm saying. I don't want you to be in the crossfire. Although you needn't worry about me, I'm strong enough. Tiamat grit her teeth and looked at him sharply. It doesn't matter what you say, because I am going with you. If you drop me off somewhere else and leave me, I will find my way to you. If you tie me up, then I will break out. I understand that I may be weak compared to the biblical god or Dragon Albion, but. Tiamat. Issei said in a serious voice as his face went into his usual calm expression. said woman upon hearing her full name without any suffixes looked at him intently. You're right, I am facing some people that may make others tremble in fear. You're also right about you being weak when facing the likes of the biblical God. I may also get injured, no matter how small that chance may be. She put down her head in shame as he listed off her vices bluntly. However, turning her attention to him, she felt a hand on top of her head. You have the will to get stronger. That is something that I admire, Tia-chan. Just 3,000 years ago I was at the level of a low to high class dragon. Right now, I will let you decide how strong I may be. That feeling of helplessness and the fact that I know that I couldn't do anything. I knew that feeling very well. The thing is that I never wanted to feel that way, so I trained my ass off every day for 3 millennia. So, Tia-chan, what do you want to do? I want to stay with you. I want to fight by your side. I want to become your knight who will protect you no matter what. That is if you would have me, Issei-sama. Haha, such determination. How can I reject something like that? Although don't call me Issei-sama, alright? Master? Nope. My lord? No. Then how do you want me to address you? The same way as before. Just call me Issei-kun. If you are serious about becoming my knight as you said, then you need to understand the kind of person I am. I would much rather have a friend than a comrade. Understand, Tia-chan? Hi, Issei-kun. She said with a smile as he finished up the last bit of his sandwich and removed his unoccupied hand from her hand. Good, now let's get going. Issei waited for her to nod and then teleported them away to the battle side of the war. The two reappeared a mile away from the battleground and Issei began walking towards the site. Upon seeing him walk, Tiamat followed at a relaxed pace. The two strolled in silence before she opened her mouth. Issei-kun, when you were facing that one devil from yesterday, how come his dragon slayer infused sword didn't affect you? Oh that. I guess it doesn't bother me really. Actually the whole dragon slaying magic concept doesn't really apply to me. Really? Tiamat said with a surprised expression on her face. Then what about the poison from Samel? Samel? You don't know who he or she is? Can't say I do. Seems like Red Chan didn't want me to know some things. He thought in suspicion and turned his attention to Tiamat. He or she is a hybrid. Dragon and fallen angel to be precise, and it is said that his or her blood is a very deadly toxin to dragons. It could even harm the likes of Office and Great Red themselves. Really? Well, that is interesting. Where is Samel now? Supposedly, he or she is residing in Cocytus in the underworld. The biblical god sent him or her there a long time ago. He or she also hates dragons with a burning passion. Wait, that reminds me, what are you going to do when you get to Dragon Albion? I'll check out the Samel later. Well, once I get there I am going to wait and see if those two need any help. If they do, then I will step in. Following that I want you to take the two Dragonis away to a safe distance after I heal them of any wounds they may have. But, nothing, Tia-chan. I'm counting on you to make sure Drag and Albion are safe from further harm from the three factions. Okay. Issei smiled and put a hand on her shoulder, which got her to look up at him. Don't be so downtrodden. I assure you that I will train you tomorrow in various subjects. I'm not like you who went from a low to high class dragon to probably a class that surpasses mine. She grumbled childishly and he gave a sheepish smile. Haha, sorry. Although it turns out I retain a lot of information and I am self-taught. I make techniques by myself and learn fighting styles the same way. The good thing is that once I get a feel on how you move and fight, I may be able to come up with several training regimens and methods for you. But we can discuss more on that tomorrow. Yeah, so what were you going to do after I get Dragon Albion away? I'm going to get rid of a thorn in our sides. I'm going to kill the biblical god. Issei said with a cold smirk as he mentioned God, and Tiamat looked at him in surprise. The angels are bound to try and stop you from reaching him. No matter. They are merely hindrances that I need to avoid. If they get in my way then I will kill them, but my target is God, and that is who I am primarily aiming for. If the other factions want to toss their hat into the arena, then I will deal with them as well. I would say good luck, but you seem awfully confident. I hope you aren't getting cocky. Nonsense, this is all confidence. If I can't kill him then how am I going to beat someone of even greater strength than him? Right. I guess. Get ready because we just about to reach the site. He saw her nod as they heard explosions coming from over the dirt hill up ahead. Climbing up, the two were met with a scorched and barren landscape that stretched a long way. Issei's eyes instantly spotted the 250-meter Dragonis down below, and he frowned as he saw their condition. The red and white dragon emperors were laying on the ground with cuts all across their bodies, and both were breathing heavily. There was also a man with 14 golden wings who looked to be in his mid-40s with white hair and a long matching beard. Issei enhanced his hearing as the man, who he assumed was God, and listened as he spoke to the heavenly dragons. Tiamat was looking at the scene below and then back at Issei, awaiting his call on the situation. Which was surprising for someone like her to do, but she would at least trust his judgment on the state of conflict down below. Before she could ask him anything, he clicked his tongue in disgust and glared at God hatefully. Following his line of sight, her eyes widened as she saw that the biblical god was raising his sword Excalibur. Of all the swords, that was the sword that she feared the most. With Ascalon following close behind. Not only does Excalibur have the same dragon-slaying magic that is greater than Ascalon, but the addition of the overall power of the sword would leave someone of her caliber heavily damaged in one hit. If God intended. Which he probably did. To make the ultimate sword for slaying dragons, then he did a superb job in doing so. The injured heavenly dragons were proof of that. I'm going down there, wait about 30 seconds then follow. Here, take this. Issei created a black coat with a long hood in his hands and handed it to Tiamat. She swiftly put it on and flipped up the hood and looked at Issei, who did the same. His eyes glowed and the only thing that was visible were his eyes. Here I go. Issei muttered as he teleported in a black flash just as God swung his sword towards the two dragons. Tiamat stood there clenching and unclenching her fists as the rising dread at being even near the man who killed many of her kind. Not to mention that Issei, the man of her recent affection, is now facing the biblical god. How could she not worry over him? If he is like this, then someone has to so he doesn't end up killing himself. Be careful, Issei-kun. Prologue Part 2. A few minutes before. God was feeling good. How could he not at the moment? He just defeated the two heavenly dragons, their bloodied bodies lying on the ground. Granted, he did have to form a temporary alliance with the devils and fallen angels, but he worked that into his favor. The three factions are currently at war. Tensions have broken past the limit of no return, and conflicts soon arose. It's been about 100 years since the initial battle, and God thinks that it is safe to say that the angels are winning this war. When the heavenly dragons were fighting and trampled onto the three factions' battlefield, they responded in kind by attacking them. Now, while God may not like the fallen angels and the devils, his hatred for dragons exceeded that dislike. Although he isn't the chief god for nothing. Even though the three sides were fighting together didn't mean that he had to save any other non-pure angel. His brethren agreed as well. As a result, at the end of this battle with the two dragons, the devils lost two of their Mau, Leviathan and Asmodeus. And a very good amount of troops. While the fallen angels and angels only lost about 200 troops. However, the fallen angels lacked a strong motive. As time continued, the leaders of the fallen angels are starting to think about backing out of the war. Not that God would let them, that is. God's motive in life is that the wicked deserve to be punished and I will be their jury, judge, and executioner if need be. So as God stood in front of these two beasts and he gazed down at their eyes with a smug look on his countenance, he couldn't help but chuckle internally. Raising his mighty Excalibur above his head, he thought of what he would do with these monstrosities. Let's see. I know. I can create two more sacred gears that I have done. They just need to be released, but with these two I can make two more Longinus class ones. Oh yeah, that sounds good enough. Then after that it won't be hard to persuade some humans to join my side against the fallen and devils. Once I regain all my power, I'm going to kill that beast. Great Red. Kukuku. God thought with a wicked smirk before directing it towards the two dragons. Any last words? Beasts. One of the dragons, a 60-meter red western dragon with crystalline green eyes, huffed violently and glared at the man. Yeah, I do. Why don't you go fuck yourself? The other dragon, a white western dragon of the same length and two golden horns along with baby blue eyes, grunted in agreement. For once I am actually agreeing with you, Drake. Oh? That makes me feel all warm inside, Albion. The red dragon, Drake, said sarcastically at its counterpart. You little. Silence, mongrels. Just die like the worthless scum that you are. With that, the biblical god swung his sword. Drake, who looked at the oncoming blade unflinching. It wasn't until a black flash appeared in front of the red dragon that it moved its head back a bit. God, clearly thinking that he could cleave right through whoever dared to intercept him, was utterly stumped when he felt something grab his sword. Looking up slightly, he saw a man wearing a black trench coat with matching pants and combat boots. The unknown man had a hood on that obscured most of his face except his eyes. The biblical god's eyes widened as he saw the man was holding his sword with only one hand, and no matter how much the deity tried to power through the sudden obstacle, the sword didn't even budge. The first thing Issei did when he teleported himself in front of God was glare at the man in cold fury. Just minutes prior he had heard the angel leader regard the two dragonesses as beast and scum, which only proved to cement his growing loathe towards the chief god. Before he appeared in front of the biblical god, he set his face in a calm mask, and his eyes became cold and calculating. He usually went into this mode when he was in any sort of fight, whether lethal or not. Issei will admit that his personality does do a whole 180 degrees when he is like this, kind of like how he was when he first came into this dimension. Glaring coldly at God, his eyes went past the old bearded man and saw members of the three factions. All of them were divided as angels, fallen angels, and devils, with some having less numbers than others. "Who are you?" God asked in a threatening tone, and Issei glided his eyes to him lazily. "Who I am? Don't worry about it. Now what I want to know is why were you about to kill these two dragons behind me?" Issei already knew why the biblical God wanted to kill them, but he wanted to anger the man before him. Judging by his face, Issei was doing a good job at doing so. God bristled angrily at the obvious defiance from this man. Who was he to defy him? He was God, the most powerful of all the chief gods. He was going to make this heathen pay for disobeying him, and maybe he will humiliate him in front of the two dragons to utterly destroy any hope they may have got when they saw him. "Listen here, boy, those two dragons are nothing but scum like the rest of their species." Haha. Issei chuckled darkly as his aura flared to life, causing the air to get thicker. "Such a rotten attitude you have. I think someone needs to kick you off of that mountain that you put yourself on." He pushed the sword over to the side and launched forward with an uppercut to God's abdomen, eliciting both a mix of blood and saliva, as well as a pained cry. A shockwave was produced from the hit, and God was sent reeling back at breakneck speeds while tumbling the whole way. The angel leader finally seemed to get his feet from under him as he skidded about another 100 feet before stopping. Issei clicked his tongue before turning around and looking at the heavenly dragons. Reaching his hands out to the both of them, they moved their heads back before putting them forward. When his hands finally touched, they felt their wounds heal and widen their eyes. After a few more seconds, he pulled back his hands and looked at their wounds and nodded to himself. "So care to tell me what two lovely ladies are doing here in the first place?" Drake and Albion felt their faces heat up, although much more noticeable in Albion's case, and averted their eyes from their savior. "Well. We were both fighting and wound up here," Drake said as she slowly stood up from her down position. "Then they started to attack us, and we weren't going to take it sitting down, so we attacked them back." "Wait, how did you know we were female?" "That is, unless you're a..." Albion trailed off as she stood up also and looked at Issei, with her head tilted to one side. "You're right. I'm a dragon, so I can smell that you both are female," came his nonchalant reply, which brought their blush back full force. "Ed, don't say it like that," the red dragon yelled, but just got a smirk in return. You didn't have to be so blunt about it." Issei-kun. Turning his head to his right, he saw Tiamat with her hood up. If he couldn't see her face, then he would have noticed her twitching eyebrow. "Right on the dot, Tia-chan." "Tia-chan? As in Tiamat, the Chaos Karma Dragon?" Albion questioned, and Draug nodded. "Hey Drake. Albion, how are you two doing?" "Fantastic. I mean, it's not every day that you get cut with dragon slaying magic and then almost die." "Drake, you damn smartass," Tiamat growled, and Issei couldn't help but chuckle at the two. Now, Tia-chan, you know what to do. Bring the two to where we were before coming down here and take this." Reaching into his pocket, he extracted a piece of paper that had a black rune on it. "Slap this onto the ground and a barrier will erect itself. Don't move from there and enjoy the show." Nodding her head, Tiamat put a hand on the two dragons and teleported them to their previous location. "Hey, boy." Issei groaned and turned back around to see God with a blonde man with blue eyes standing next to him. Glancing once more to the three dragons' location, he was glad to know that the barrier was already up. "Oh, came back for more." He smirked at God, not that he could see due to his hood. That made the biblical God fume in anger, but before he could respond, Issei spoke up once more. "Now I'm pretty sure that you all know where this is going, so I will say this only once. Anyone who doesn't want to get killed or critically injured, retreat now." Scanning his eyes from the three factions, he waited for a few moments before a loud sigh was heard. "This is a better time than any to say this, I guess. We, the fallen angels, hereby withdraw from the war." A man in his 20s spoke up from his respective side. He had black hair and golden bangs as well as a black goatee. He also had 12 jet black feathered wings, signifying that he was a fallen angel. "Azazel, you coward. An enemy is right in front of us, yet you want to run." A young man with black hair and pointy ears hollered. Unlike Azazel, this fallen angel only had 10 black wings, along with pale skin and bloodshot eyes. "Kabiel." Azazel sighed tiredly and rubbed his eyes. "We lost a good number of troops during this war, and unlike the angels and devils, our population is limited. Nothing you say or do will change my decision. Don't forget who the leader of the Grigori is." Kabiel ground his teeth together before giving an angry huff and turning away. Azazel gave a signal, and a giant magic circle appeared underneath them and their army. Once they were gone, Issei turned his attention back to the angels and devils. "Anyone else?" The only thing he got was silence in return. "Alright then." As soon as the last word left his mouth, the combined group of devils and angels, totaling to about 500 troops, all charged up their respective magic, or in the angels' case, light spears. Then about 200 soldiers of their joint armies came charging at him with light swords and metal lances. Looking down at his hand, he gently clenched it, and an amused smirk marred his obscured face. It's time I reveal myself to the supernatural world. The oncoming volley of projectiles and soldiers came within 50 feet of him before a giant burst of power sent them all sailing backwards. The biblical god was in the process of trying to steady himself from the sudden increase, although it wasn't long before a massive pressure fell over him and everyone present. Fumbling to his hands and knees, he looked ahead to see the man clad in black release a monstrous aura compared to the small bit he let out upon his arrival. Yet, it was the power itself that scared him despite the increasing size. Covering the area like a thick miasma, it was black in color, but it also reflected a variety of colors, both dark and light. Orange, blue, gold, silver, ruby, purple, and so forth shimmered and gleamed, while the obsidian color was still there. God suddenly realized why the man's power was so terrifying. It was because it felt undiluted, raw, pure, and dare he say infinite. However, God was not the only one who felt the shiver of fear. In fact, all around the planet the deities of different factions felt that same dread creep up on them. With Issei's aura still growing that it spread to the rest of the planet while covering it like a blanket, it made him stand out. Just like he wanted. ZZZZ. 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 ZZZ huh. A large serpent-like dragon mumbled in confusion as it opened its amber eyes groggily. Looking around, it lifted its head slightly and observed the surrounding landscape. Several fish seemed to stop dead in their tracks before swimming away in fear. Tilting its head in confusion, the dragon gave a long yawn before swimming up towards the surface of the ocean. Yawn, what is that enormous energy? It feels familiar. The dragon spoke softly as it seemed to slither upwards. When it finally peeked its head out of the water, its eyes widened considerably. A black aura with multiple shimmering colors seemed to expand across the sunny sky until it completely blocked out any light from the star. Day instantly seemed to turn into night, but instead of feeling any sort of fear, the dragon smiled and went back down to its resting spot. Gently getting comfortable, the dragon put its head down on the soft sand and couldn't help but chuckle softly. Dufu, Ice-kun must be revealing himself. I have to make plans to visit him in the future, but first. ZZZZ. The dragon said in a very feminine voice before dozing back into sleep. Such a boring fight, none of them seemed to match up to him. A woman's voice rang out through a quiet and decrepit village. Several of houses were set ablaze with a raging fire while bodies littered the streets. Based on their bat-like wings, they were obviously devils. However, right in the middle of the village was a giant pile of dead bodies filled with men, women, and children. Sitting on top of the pile was the woman in question. Adorning a black overcoat with golden ornaments, a plain black shirt, a pair of form-fitting black jeans, and black knee-high combat boots that had 2 golden buckles on the backside, the woman looked both intimidating and stunning. She swiped a strand of black and gold hair from her face and peered at the corpses with her mismatched eyes. Her left eye was black, while her other was the same shade of gold as her hair. The morning sun reflected off of her pale skin, but the dissatisfied frown on her lips didn't go away. I should leave before the devils come to my loca. Giving off her surprised sound, she snapped her gaze at the sky, which instantly darkened as a familiar miasma covered the atmosphere. Instantly recognizing the aura, she let out an eager grin and stood up from her spot on the dead bodies. My Issei-kun. You really got strong since the last time I met you. That time when you saved me from La. That demanding presence you gave off and the glimpse I got at your power. It seems I'm going to have to step up my training if I want to stand on equal ground with you. Dusting off her clothes, she narrowed her eyes at the miasma before tilted her head. Why are you still suppressing your power, I wonder? HMPH, either way, once I get stronger I will make sure to court you. Until then, Issei-kun. Giving one last smile, she disappeared in a golden flash. GRR. When will you give up? It should be obvious that you can't beat me. Great Red roared in anger as she dodged a black-violet beam before blasting a red energy beam in return. Aka Red, I will kill you. A woman in her 40s with black hair and emotionless gray eyes said in a monotone voice. In addition, she was wearing a gothic Lolita outfit. Dodging the red blast, she manifested about a dozen snakes and sent them to Great Red. You damn brat. Great Red hollered and swiped her wing at the snakes, which dispelled them into a smoky haze. Office, how long do you want to keep this up? I will kill you this time. It doesn't matter, I will always come back to kill you, bitch Red. You stole my home. The woman, now Office, stated, and just as she was about to send another attack, the dimensional gap started to shake as an unknown aura creeped in. The two dragons ceased their fight and instead looked around as the aura seemed to cover the iridescent landscape. Such a strange, yet powerful aura. The Ouroboros dragon mused to herself while Great Red was in shock. That aura. No doubt that is Issei-kun. I knew he got stronger, but I never thought he was this strong. Damn, is his intention to reveal himself or something? Current fight now forgotten, Great Red caused a large tear to rip in the space next to her and centered in on Issei's location. The image blinked before displaying said man standing across the angels and devils army, who were looking at him with a fearful look. Looking around, she saw the Chaos Karma Dragon and the two heavenly dragons standing up on a dirt hill, although they seemed to be unaffected by the power output. Without any indication, Issei's ever-increasing aura sucked back into his body and vanished without any sort of trace. How interesting. Who is this person? Office asked herself, but then noticed a flash of worry and curiosity cross over Great Red's eyes. Narrowing her eyes at the true dragon before her face became emotionless once more and looked at the image with interest. Who are you? The biblical god asked with a slight stutter at Issei, who cracked his knuckles. Like I said, you don't need to know. Now where we were again. Oh yes, the fight. Well, give me your best shot. Let's hope you don't disappoint me. Issei muttered the last part to himself as the angels and devils all took a defensive stance, albeit shaky as they may be. Noticing this, he chuckled darkly at them. Yeah, I didn't even attack yet and you're already trembling in your shoes. Wow, let's hope you can survive. Although don't blame me for you dying. You should blame yourself for your own arrogance, since you neglected to call your remaining troops from your home bases. And also for your own weakness. Smirking coldly at the now terrified devil and angel troops. Stretching out his right hand, a black portal opened up and he sent his hand in. Finding what he was looking for, he wrapped his hand around it and withdrew it from the portal, which disappeared as soon as his hand was fully out. In his hand was a sheathed sword that gave off power that seemed primal. The sheath was a deep ebony that seemed to absorb any light that was reflected onto it, and the handle was the same color as the sheath but was decorated in red jewels. Switching hands so the 3-foot-and-a-half long sword was situated in his left hand, he gently the handle with his right. This is a sword of my own creation. And you all will be the test to see if it is just as I anticipated it to be. Swiftly withdrawing the sword from its sheath, he put it on his left hip before pointing the black blade at the angels and devils. Giving one last smirk, he instantly vanished, leaving a loud shockwave in his wake. Appearing right in front of the nearest angel, Issei swiped his sword in an upward diagonal fashion and successfully split the angel in two. Ignoring the bewildered looks being sent his way, he charged another angel and decapitated him, and it was then that the coalition army seemed to break out of their stupor. Surrounding him in a circle, Issei can be seen slicing and dicing angels and devils that dared cross his path. However, as he stated previously, they were mere obstacles in his way to God, who was stationed on the outskirts of the circle. Parrying a swing from a light sword, Issei punched the man in the face and sent him flying back to the fray. Turning around, he deflected two swings from a pair of devils and stabbed one of them while he grabbed the other one by the throat with his unoccupied hand. Wrenching his sword free from the now dead body, he jerked his left hand and a crack was heard from the devil's gullet that he was holding. Without looking, Issei stepped to the side and grabbed a light spear that was sent his way and charged some of his power into it. The spear instantly glowed in a white light, but also let off a dark color as well. Throwing the spear at a group of devils and angels, it exploded and they were instantly vaporized in the blast. It was then that he spotted an opening in the crowd that led to God. He ran full force at the deity. Swinging at any opposition that came across his path, he ducked and flipped over any stray swords or projectiles until he saw that he was surrounded once more. Two figures stepped up towards him, and Issei made note that they had 12 devil wings. Lucifer and Beelzebub. Issei identified them as they both brandished their weapons, or in Beelzebub's case, magic. Well, you sure are strong to take down a good portion of our army, let alone only using your sword. Lucifer stated as he wiped some of his silver hair from his eyes. I agree, but your reign ends here. Beelzebub followed up while Issei just looked at the two Mayus in boredom. Yeah, okay. Issei spoke sarcastically, and his left arm was then completely enveloped in blue, sparkling lightning. The lightning quickly changed colors to a white-black, and he slammed his electricity-clad fist into the ground. Unable to handle the pressure, the surface cracked violently while the electricity flowed through the opening fissure. The pained cries of devils and angels that were caught in the lightning-based attack were apparent, but luckily some of the army, including the biblical god and the last two Mayus, took to the skies. Ignoring the slowly disintegrating angels devils, Issei looked at God before yawning to himself. Wow. I'm bored with these small fry. Might as well end it as quickly as possible, I guess. Grinning at the thought, Issei launched himself at the two Mayus before instantly vanishing from view midway to his destination. Looking all around their point of view, the two Mayus were curious as to where Issei went before they widened their eyes and looked up. He was above. Beelzebub exclaimed as Issei was already in the motion for a downward strike. Swinging down his sword with unsurpassable speeds, Issei used some of his powers to further enhance the effect of the strike. Finishing his strike, the space towards the last Mayus shimmered before a loud burst of wind sent them propelling down to the earth. Although whether or not that was the best option is arguable. His power-enhanced strike reached the ground as well and split open the already deep crack in the crust of the planet while also widening it to unimaginable proportions. Dirt and rock spewed from the crack as globs of molten hot lava can be seen bubbling at the very bottom. Disappearing in a black flash, Issei reappeared on the edge of the enormous crack and looked down to see the two Mayus hanging on to the side, both heavily injured from that one stroke. It seems that your reign ends here. Issei smirked at the two before twirling his sword and sticking in the ground with a loud thud. Straight away, the lava that was stationed at the bottom of the crevice rushed towards the surface and spewed in the air about 20 meters high. As quickly as it came was as fast as it disappeared, leaving not even ash of the two Mayu. Lifting his sword from the ground, he turned to the about 100 to 200 still standing soldiers. The rest were either dead or unconsciousness. He killed Lucifer Sama. And Beelzebub Sama too. Screw this, I'm out of here. Some of the devils yelled out in obvious fear and made transportation circles and disappeared. Turning to the leftover angels, Issei grinned and charged at the flying biblical god. Appearing in the angel leader's blind spot, he sent an axe kick to the man, who just barely put his hands up in defense. Rocketing to the ground, God groaned and held onto his sword tighter before he felt himself get lifted off the ground by front of his wide armor. You unhand God right this instant. The golden-haired man, Michael if Issei remembered correctly, screamed and charged up a light sword to the max and lunged at Issei. Feeling something bounce off his body, Issei could only chuckle in mirth at the seraph's shocked expression. Slamming the pommel of his sword into the angel's head, Issei put back his attention to God. Oya. Such a weak attack. I expected more of a seraph, but then again I'm not surprised. He stated in cold amusement while the rest of the angels could do nothing but be frozen in fear. Release me, some who is nothing more than dragon-loving scum isn't fit to touch me. God bellowed angrily, but Issei merely laughed a bit. Arrogant to the end. How predictable. Just as he was about to raise his sword to stab the biblical god, Issei felt a fist wrench itself in his gut. Looking down to see God's fist imbued with light energy, he raised an eyebrow. Slamming the deity into the ground, creating a large crater as a result, he sheathed his sword before stepping a few feet from the downed god. Why don't we settle this like men? An old-fashioned fist fight. Ha! It's your funeral either way, but I would have to reject. God grinned as golden magic circles appeared all around Issei's immediate vicinity. Pouring out of the circles were angels by the hundreds, all coming to defend their god from harm. As if on K, the newly assembled angel force created light spears and trained it on him. Issei just smirked, but before he could begin to wrap up this fight, a golden-haired female pushed her way through the crowd of angels. Gabriel. What are you doing here? You are supposed to remain in heaven at all times. God said in a calm tone, but it held anger. Seeing that one of the seraphs has entered their trajectory, the angels momentarily lowered their spears and motioned for some to round up the ones that were still alive, and also Michael, who was unconscious. Stop this. Gabriel hollered at Issei, blue eyes pleading for him to listen. You can't kill God. If he dies, then who will lead the humans? Who will lead them to peace and prosperity? Everything we do, if for the greater good of humanity and the supernatural world. Can't you see that? Oh? Is that so? And pray tell who is going to stop me from doing so? He asked rhetorically, to which Gabriel instinctively grimaced, clearly expecting him to back down from the fight. Think about it logically. If you kill God, then the other factions will no doubt attack the angel faction. Not to mention that they will go after you as a way to challenge themselves. How would you avoid conflict with the other races? The busty golden-haired beauty stated, and Issei was silent for a few seconds and put a hand on his shadowed face. Haha. Issei laughed as his aura burst back into existence with a vengeance, and gravity seemed to increase as they were all sent to the floor. Again in God's case. Your naivety is amusing, little crow. How will I avoid conflict with the other factions? You say. It's simple. It's fear. To think that one emotion could do so much, but I can. Fear can lead you to avoid conflict and turn the other way. As to your faction. Why would I care about the angel faction? To be honest, I don't give a damn about what happens to you all. If you are scared of other factions attacking you, then get stronger. Issei glared at the seraph and walked forward until he was looming over her kneeling position. I can't stand people like you. Or rather women like you. If you don't like something, then stop pleading and begging and do something about it. Instead of cursing your own misfortune, you should get stronger to overcome that obstacle. However, I should commend you for being so brave enough to throw yourself in the midst of a fight. So for your courage, you don't have to watch your god die. Cutting off her supply of oxygen momentarily, Issei used the gravity around him and threw her body like a ragdoll towards the assembled angels. Looking back at God, he relented the increased gravity on the bearded man and grinned, clearly not caring if the woman was caught or not. Now where were we? Oh, that's right, I was going to kill you. The biblical god brandished his sword Excalibur and charged at Issei. Sidestepping a swing from the blade and then ducking under another, Issei practically played with the deity. Slapping away a light spear that was sent his way, he tensed his body as a wide strike was sent his way. Moving his body at the last second, Issei grabbed onto God's arm and punched the elbow with enough force to pop a joint from the socket. Ah! The deity screamed out in pain as he looked down and saw that his bone has broken through his skin. Grinding his teeth in anger, the biblical god took Excalibur in his other hand and proceeded to swing in fury. Your movements are getting sloppier, biblical god. Is this all the chief deity can do? Issei asked with a smirk and was rewarded with even more wild swings. His body suddenly disappeared in a flash, and God instantly felt his left leg explode in pain. Uttering another cry of pain, he looked down to see that the limb below the knee was gone and leaking blood profusely. Using his sword as a cane, God turned around and saw Issei standing there casually. You know, this is probably nothing compared to the pain you caused when you killed all those dragons. While may have been justified, most were clearly out of spite. They are nothing but scum. Shut up. Issei's voice hardened and he stalked his way to God and caught the sword in his hands. Then, Excalibur glowed white, signaling that God was inputting his power into it. Seeing that he was trying to strengthen Excalibur, Issei charged up his hands with dark energy which ate away at God's light energy. What? The deity muttered in confusion as his sword lost its glow. It was then that he heard something that he never thought he would hear. The sound of a sword breaking. Snapping his attention to Excalibur, God was completely slack-jawed when he saw spider web cracks appear on his prided sword. For a sword known to be one of the strongest, it sure does break easily. Issei muttered to himself and applied more pressure till he heard the sound of definite breaking. Snapping the sword into several pieces, he delivered a roundhouse kick to God's face. The result was that the leader of heaven was sent flying back until Issei appeared in his path and gave a sharp elbow right to his stomach that sent him to the ground once more. Another crater was formed as the biblical god coughed up a large amount of blood. Groaning in pain, God tried to pull himself up but found a foot on his only good hand. Before he could speak, a resounding crack was heard as his hand broke. Issei didn't waste any time in throwing a flurry of punches at the downed deity's face, each punch generating even more blood than the last. By the end of it, God's right eye was completely swelled shut and blood was now leaking from his nose and mouth. Grabbing the man by his throat, Issei held him up for the angels to see and was met by horror-stricken gasps. It was then that he suddenly smirks when he felt someone watching him and looked all around the area and found nigh invisible magic circles with different crests on them. Hello, leaders of the other factions. Issei began as his gaze lingered on a single tear in the space for a little while longer. My name is not something that you need to know. You see, I have been among you all, and I saw some things that irked me. For some reason, you all find it favorable to slaughter innocent dragons. Yet for what reason I do not know. Holding up God even higher in the air, he narrowed his eyes a bit at the unseen audience. Your heroes in your mythology kill dragons without giving a damn about who you are killing. Almost as if it is they get some prize for killing the dragons. Tell me, how many of my brethren have you killed for glory? Was it to follow in the example of this man? This chief god of all gods that is now broken before you is nothing but a hypocrite. Looking directly at God, Issei's lips peeled back in a small snarl of disgust. Your religion is flawed in so many ways it's laughable, although there is a reason why I dislike you. It's because you get away with some of the cruelest acts, yet you get away with them just by saying it is for the better of your religion. No, your trivial problems with dragons and serpents has gave birth to naught but a false god wrapped in benevolent clothing. That is why you will die right now. Issei threw God in the air, but before the leader of heaven could use his wings to fly away, he felt a searing hot pain begin on his stomach. Looking down, he saw a black flame erupt from the spot and he found himself screaming in pain as he could feel each cell of his body burn to nothing. Falling to the ground with a thud, God continued to roll around in attempt to extinguish the flames and even try to bring out his power, only to find it blocked somehow. Don't even think about using your light powers, fallen god. I imbued the flames with dark energy that even you won't be able to escape from. The biblical god heard Issei say but couldn't respond due to the pain. His mouth set in a mouthless scream, his eyes finally rolled back into his head. Flames eating up all of his body and the only thing left was a small pile of burning ash. Let this be a lesson to all of the other factions in the world. If I find either of you harming an innocent dragon, I will personally arrive at your gates and utterly destroy you till there is nothing left. Now scram. Issei's voice rumbled the very air as he neared the end of his talk, and the gods and goddesses on the other side all felt chills run up their spines. Abiding by his command, they each ended their viewing circle, but the tear in the space was still there. Is that a good show for you, Red-chan? Cuckoo, I can just imagine her face when we talk next time. Simply waving his hand at the large group of downed angels, they all felt their eyelids grow heavier, and one by one they felt their consciousness leave them. Flashing to where Tiamat, Drake, and Albion are, he tapped the barrier and it dispersed. He noticed that the Chaos Karma Dragon was looking at him both in awe, curiosity, and a little bit of fear. Well, the two heavenly dragons were looking at him with a blank face, but the sweat that was on their foreheads was enough to tell him that they were nervous or scared. Boy, girls. There is no need to be scared. You should know that I wouldn't hurt you unless you gave me a reason to. Now, let's get back to the house. Snapping his head to a single point in the sky, his entire body tensed up upon doing so. The three dragons all followed his line of sight, but couldn't find anything significant in the area. Issei-kun, what's wrong? Nothing. I thought I sensed something, but never mind. Let's get back the house, that includes you two as well. Looking at the two heavenly dragons, they looked at him surprised before narrowing their eyes in suspicion. Don't worry, I won't do anything. Fine. Alright. Drake and Albion said, and he smiled a bit before flashing them back to his house. Arriving at the destination, Issei looked around and saw that he was right outside of the house. Turning to look at the 50-meter dragons, he chuckled a bit in amusement, ignoring their questioning glances. You two have a human form. If not, I could always make the house bigger. The red and white dragon emperors nodded their heads and he nodded as well. Good, that makes things easier. If you two would direct yourself to the living room, that would be swell. I need to take a shower from today's activities. Tia-chan, I trust that you will stop any fights between the two if any occur. Sure, I could stall them, Issei-kun. Good. Then, see you all soon. Without another word, he teleported inside the house. Tiamat looked at the two dragons with a slightly narrowed glance. Said dragons ignored the glance and instead went into their human forms. Their bodies glowing slightly, Tiamat waited for the process to finish, although her eyes were now set in a daring glare. When the light died down, it revealed two women who looked very similar in facial structures, but you could easily tell the difference based on their appearance. On the left was a 5'10" woman in her late teen with creamy skin and a mop of red hair that reached the beginning of her thighs. Her eyes were a lovely crystalline green color that seemed to reflect the light that shined upon them. Her hips were slightly curvy, but her bust size easily made up for her lack of curve. She was wearing a plain red shirt along with blue jeans and white shoes. On the right was a woman of the same age and height, but she has luscious silver hair that reached her lower back. Her shiny blue eyes seemed to absorb every detail of the house in front of her and combine that with her skin tone that was more on the paler side opposed to her opposite. Unlike the red-eyed woman next to her, she is wearing a white blouse, as well as a blue and white floral pattern skirt. She was also wearing a pair of black flats on her feet. The skirt and blouse did well and accented her wider hips and perky bust that hugged her figure. Tiamat could instantly see the differences between the two as the red-eyed girl went into a more relaxed stance, while the silver-haired girl straightened her back and squared her shoulders. She even had her folded hands out in front of her like a princess. This is the first time I am seeing you in your human forms. The strongest of the Dragon King stated, and she got a smirk from the red-eyed. Oh? Do you feel threatened, Tiamat? Afraid I might take something that interests you? Tiamat knew what she was insinuating, and that instantly caused her glare to increase in intensity. Drake, please. As if someone like you could ever attract this Issei, let alone a regular dragon. The silver-haired beauty said with a sigh while Drake growled at her. I don't see you having suitors by the dozen, Albion. HMPH, any male dragon would probably be thrilled to have me as a mate. Unfortunately, the only people that would even think of wanting to be your mate were cavemen that died a long time ago. Let's be honest, Drake, you act too brash for a mate. Not to mention, you aren't dignified enough. Dignified? As if I give a flying foo. Girls. While I enjoy your bickering, can we at least do this in the house? Tiamat interjected to the two, which caused Drake to grumble to herself. Nevertheless, the Dragon King opened the door to the house and led the two to the living room. She idly made note of the silent conversation between the heavenly dragons right behind her. Picking a seat on one of the couches, she waited for the two to sit down and sized both of them up. It was quiet for a few minutes between the three, with only the sound of running water being the only apparent noise. The three females were all glancing at each other and sizing up their bodies. Finally, Albion cleared her throat and put her attention on Tiamat. So, Tiamat, how long did you know this Issei? I just met him yesterday, actually. Yesterday? Yeah. The White Dragon Emperor narrowed her blue eyes at the dragon and was about to speak when her opposite jumped into the conversation. What are you to him then? You don't seem like the type to stay at one place for so long. Also, just who is he? He killed the biblical god. Not that I'm complaining. And he made it look like he was just playing with the leader of heaven. Turning her face from Drake, Tiamat thought on the recent events. Issei told her that he will let her judge his power against God, and she had faith that he would come out victorious, but did not expect him to do so easily. Also, his change in personality both scared her, yet she couldn't help but feel her carnal desire kick in at that point and demand for her to take him as a mate. The way he presented himself, how he spoke with such coldness, his dominating power that literally blocked out the sun, and him setting the deity on fire with inextinguishable flames. She couldn't help but let out a shiver that moved across her body. To be honest, I don't know. The only thing I know is that he saved me yesterday from some devils, and then he brought me here. As for who I am to him, I am his knight yet also his friend. Although, I should say, Issei is mine. Or rather he will be mine. Haha. Ha 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 ha. Drake let a laugh escape her lips, while the other two looked at her confused. Ha ha ha, oh, Tiamat. Seems like you are going to get competition then. From you? The blue-haired woman asked, but Drake shook her head and motioned to Albion. No, from my dear younger sister Albion. She was totally checking him out ever since we came here. Albion instantly blushed upon the accusation, but then glared at her older sister. You always have to mention that I am younger, do you? TSK, not that it matters anyway since I am the better of the two of us. Phew, I won't deny though that he has caught my fancy. But I am not the only one since Drake was practically drooling when she saw him release his power. D did and not. As if I would do something like that. You would do something like that because you are part barbaric anyway, so it fits for someone like you. Anyway, when it comes to matters of the heart I will not lose. Like hell I will let you get him. Drake roared angrily at her sister who glared at her with a hidden fury. Just accept it. No, I will not. I am the oldest so I get first picks on a mate. That was never a rule, you merely made that up now. I did not. That's the one rule that sisters must abide by. In your book, yes. In mine, no. By the way, you wouldn't go well with him to begin with. He needs someone who knows manners and how to be a lady and not a barbaric woman like you. You little bitch. Skank. Whore. Slut. You piece of shit. Asshole. Stop it. Neither of you are going to get him since he will be mine. You two need to learn your place and back the hell out. Tiamat screamed at the two bickering dragons which got them to stop their argument. Drake and Albion stared at the Dragon King before smirking. You should know how we find mates, Chaos Karma Dragon. Do you really believe you have any more claim to him than we do? Albion asked as her sharp blue eyes threatened to cut Tiamat on the spot. We, dragons, love power. That is what we will look for in a mate. Male or female. We do this so if conflict arises you can trust your mate that they can defend you and your kids, if you have any. Drake continued and Tiamat practically snarled at the two, while glaring dangerously at them. Issei-kun is different, I know he is. You silly girl. Albion shook her head, like a parent chastising a kid. I know he is different because no other dragon would have come to help another in need. Regardless, it is not his choice. It is our very nature as dragons to seek out a mate of equal or greater strength. We ask you once again. Do you really think you have any more claim to him than we do? Let's be honest here, Dragon King. You don't. If anything, he probably, unconsciously mind you, thinks that we are more mate-worthy than you. So, if anyone here has to learn their place it is you. Dragon King, that needs to learn where they stand to us, the heavenly dragons. After finishing her sentence both Drake and Albion glowered at Tiamat, who did so back in return. Would you two like anything to drink? Issei's voice rang down the hallway and the girls ceased their glaring and instead focused at the doorway to reveal Issei wearing some blue shirts and a black shirt. Do you have any tea? The red and white dragon emperors said in sync and Issei chuckled at the two. Both dragons glanced at each other and flushed a bit in embarrassment. Sure I do. Do you want anything as well, Tia-chan? Some water would be appreciated. She said with a slightly strained smile, which Issei noticed but didn't say anything. Nodding his head, he went to the kitchen and began to prepare the drinks. After only a few minutes away, he entered the living room once again with a tray of 2 teas and 2 glasses of water. Handing the drinks to their respective person, he sat down on a one-seat recliner and took a sip of his glass. His eyes roamed from one girl to the next, making note of the way they held themselves. For instance, Tiamat was drinking her water in a relaxed manner, but he could tell that her body was stiff and tense. He wondered why, but disregarded it since it may just be that she was wary of the 2 dragonesses. Looking to Drake, he scanned over her features and concluded that she was very beautiful just like Tiamat. She was absent-mindedly blowing on her cup of tea before drinking it at a quick pace. She must have been thirsty. I wonder if the other is as well. Taking his eyes off of the red-haired beauty, he looked to her opposite. Absorbing her appearance, he was not surprised to find that just like Drake, she was another gorgeous woman. Unlike Drake, she was more attentive to her surroundings and seemed to be more eloquent. Holding the cup in both hands and delicately grabbing the handle before taking a steady sip of the cup's content, her posture wasn't lacking, and she even crossed her legs in a ladylike manner. Noticing a pair of eyes on her, Albion turned her head to Issei and gave a small smile which he gladly returned. Although despite their differences there were some similarities. Their facial structure was nigh identical, like their noses and lips. Drake was only a bit more gifted in the breasts department, while Albion was a tad curvier than her opposite. Not to mention, they both smelled pretty much the same. Are you two sisters by any chance? His sudden question caused the two heavenly dragons to widen their eyes a bit. Drake suddenly smirked a bit at Albion, whose eyebrow twitched ever so slightly. Yes, we are. I'm the oldest while Albion is my younger sister. You're the first one to guess that. The Red Dragon Emperor said while Albion bit her tongue to keep herself from retorting her sister's statement. That's odd, you two have the same facial structure, and you both smell similar. That seemed to cause the two dragons to blush as they remembered what he said about being able to smell them. Either way, I'm sure you three have some questions. It is only fair after what recently happened that I abide to answer. After a few moments of silence, Tiamat was the first one to question him. Issei-kun, you were basically playing with the biblical god. How strong are you really? Well, I did say that I would let you decide that. So how strong do you think I am? At least as strong as Drake and Albion here, but you were suppressing your power, weren't you? Good observation. Yeah, I was. I wanted to minimize the damage that would have been done to the earth. You carved a giant crack right through the crust that you can see lava boiling at the bottom. It stretches for at least 1,000 or more meters. If that is just minimal damage, then I wonder what you can do if you wanted to maximize the damage done. Tiamat said in disbelief, and Issei just smiled mysteriously at her. Ah, Issei, right. Albion asked politely to him. Please, call me Issei-kun. I'm sure we are all friends here. Well then, address me as Chan from now on as well. Me too. Drake interjected, which got an annoyed look from Albion, not that she cared to notice. Alright, Albion Chan, Drake Chan. So what was your question? Right. You seem much more different than you were when you were fighting God. Why is that? I usually just call it a mode that I have. But, if you were to get specific, then you could say that was how was before all the time. Dark and cold a majority of my time, but I had a friend that helped me get over that. Yet, just because I am not like that all the time doesn't entail that it doesn't slip out primarily when I am in a fight. So you are kind of like an evil dragon? Drake asked with her head tilted a bit, but he shrugged. If you trying to say that I am brutal in battle, then yes, if you mean all the time, then no. Also, unlike most of the evil dragons, I am not psychotic nor crazy. True. So what is your goal, Issei-kun? What do you want to do? Well, Tia-chan. Like everyone, I have my own checklist. You will find out when I achieve those goals, but for now I won't tell you. Any other questions? Then allow me to ask some. Why were you two fighting? Issei asked the heavenly dragons, who in question looked at each other. We don't necessarily agree with each other. Drake began, but she sounded unsure of herself. Let's say that we often have disputes in spite of us being siblings. Albion continued, and like her sister she too was unsure of herself. So like a sibling rivalry in a way. That's basically it. Sometimes I want something yet she also does and we fight over it. Issei nodded at Drake's words and finished his glass of water. Picking up the tray, he went around and collected everyone's empty cups and put them in the kitchen. When he came back, he went over to the heavenly dragons and swiftly chopped them on the head. Upon seeing this, Tiamat let out a small laugh as the two dragons yelped in pain. Ow. The hell was that for? Drake yelled out while Albion cradled her head with her hands. That really hurt, Issei-kun. It was supposed to hurt. Forgive me if I hurt your feelings, but you two are idiots. Hey. Ahahaha. Tiamat laughed at the two dragonesses, unable to hold in her laughter at their misfortune. Issei ignored their shouts and instead looked at them with a sharp gaze. So, if you two don't like each other, then you wouldn't mind if I kill one of you then? All sign of conversation stopped, even Tiamat, who was in the middle of laughing. What are you talking about? Drake shouted in anger, but it didn't seem to affect Issei at all. Issei-kun. What do you mean? Tiamat added while Albion said they're silent with a contemplative look on her face. It's obvious. If I kill one of them, they wouldn't care, right? For instance. His body suddenly disappeared, and before the other two dragonesses knew what was happening, Drake vanished as well. Appearing just a few feet from Tiamat and Albion was Issei, holding Drake by throat with his forearm. Her body dangled a few inches from the ground and her eyes were wide in fear. Now, Albion. If I were to snap her neck like a twig, would you care at all? Would you avenge your dear older sister, or would you turn the other direction? Also, Drake, don't even think of boosting your power, because the moment you do, I will kill you. So what is it, Albion? Issei-kun, stop this. Tiamat hollered, but he didn't take his eyes off of the silver-haired woman. The woman in question slowly got up from her seat and smoothed out her skirt before looking at her sister. Hands trying to wrench the forearm from her throat, to no avail, and eyes trained on her with a pleading look. Sighing to herself, Albion averted her eyes from the sight. You see, Drake is annoying and gets on my nerves all the time. She is loud, brash, completely lacks manners, and sometimes I really do go to kill her whenever we have a fight. I hate how she always thinks how since I am the younger sibling she has first claim to everything because she is the oldest by only a few minutes. Honestly, I wouldn't mind to see her die. Well then, I guess. However, Albion interrupted Issei as a wide aura surrounded her body and her eyes glowed menacingly. She is my sister above all else. Sure, she is the opposite of me and can be a bitch at some times, we are blood related. I will not let you or anyone else take away the only family I have left. Even if you kill God easily. I don't care. If you even try to kill Drake. I will fight you, and even if I die, I will die trying to save my family. Al? Gyeon. Drake's weakened voice rang out in shock as her eyes suddenly welled up with unshed tears. The weight on her neck from Issei suddenly disappeared and she didn't waste time in running to her sister. Flinging herself to her opposite, Drake squeezed the life out of Albion, who did so in return. Tiamat was about to scold Issei only to find himself smiling at the scene. Utterly confused at what was happening, she stood silent as the only sound apparent was some slight sobbing coming from Drake. Do you see now? You two shouldn't fight. You are siblings, sisters at that. When you're here in this world you only have each other to look out for. You never know when they might be gone. And I can tell you that the pain of not being able to see them anymore exceeds the pain they may cause you. By now the three girls were looking at Issei, who seemed to be reminiscing about something. Snapping out of his thoughts, he turned to Drake and bowed in apology. I apologize if I have hurt you in any way. I hope you can find it in yourself to forgive me. Suddenly becoming embarrassed at the sight of him bound to her, Drake blushed and turned her head away from him. It's not that big of a deal. Why, you just got me by surprise. Yeah, surprise. Although, you sure are muscled. She mumbled the last part to herself and rubbed her neck a bit. Be that as it may, you helped out my sister and I. For that, I believe it warrants my forgiveness to you. Thank you, but I can see some irritation already forming on your neck. I can heal it for you if you want. If it makes you feel better, then okay. It would. So, do you want me to kiss the pain away or something else? What? The red-haired woman yelped as her blush came back with a vengeance, her cheeks the same color as her hair. Albion and Tiamat looked at Drake with a bit of envy at the position she was in. I can't even tell if he is serious or not. The Red Dragon Emperor thought to herself with a sweat drop before shrugging. I don't know. Just do whatever makes you comfortable. Making his way over to her, Issei leaned down and planted a small kiss on the side of her neck while also imbuing some healing properties to her. On Drake's part, she shivered in delight as she instantly felt a jolt go across her body both inside and out. With a sharp intake in breath at the contact to a satisfied groan when she felt her neck heal, Drake was now fully sure that she wanted Issei as a mate. If he could do this to her with just a single kiss, then imagine what he could do to her when they did other things. They're all better. Now, would you two like to stay for dinner, or do you have any other plans? Sharing a glance, the two heavenly dragons nodded at each other before looking back at him. We are going to head out. If we lost to God and the others, then we need to train more, not to mention my sister and I are going to try to connect more. Albion said, and Issei smiled at the two. I hope that the next time I see you, the both of you will be even stronger. The power to boost your power and the power to divide others' power. By itself those powers are troublesome, but together they are practically a recipe for disaster. I look forward to our next meeting. Just as he finished his sentence, he felt his left arm become enveloped by a pair of breasts. Turning his head, he saw that Drake was indeed hugging his arm between her well-developed bust. You make it seem like you may never see us again. I can personally guarantee that we will meet soon. She said with a seductive wink, which seemed to go right over his head if the head tilt was any indication. Feeling his other arm being shrouded in between another pair of mounts, Issei looked to the right to see Albion. The silver-haired beauty gave him a slightly sultry smile as she looked up at him with her blue eyes. I agree with Drake. It isn't like we could stay away from the person who saved us for so long. I would love to get to know you better the next time we meet. Suddenly he felt someone wrap their arms over and around his shoulders. Turning his head sideways, he could see Tiamat's blue-green eyes focus in on him. Issei-kun, don't forget about me. It isn't like I am going anywhere anytime soon. Is this what they call the beginning of a harem? Nah, that probably isn't it. Haha, Drake-chan, Albion-chan. I would like to get to know you both next time. Tia-chan, who said anything about forgetting about you? As if I could with someone of your stature. Now, would you two like for me to walk you out? The three dragonesses relented their hold on Issei, and the red and silver-haired women nodded their heads. Gesturing for Tiamat to wait there, he led the way through the house and to the front door. This is a nice place you have here, did you build it yourself? Albion asked as she admired the architecture of the housing. I did, but this is only one of the houses that I have. I travel a lot and due to that I need a good number of houses. As a matter of fact, I will only be in Japan for the next month or so before I head west to Europe. Europe? That's an odd transition. He nodded at Drake's statement with a smile as they turned a corner. Yeah, that is true. But, I have been there a few times and I have a friend there that I haven't seen for some time. A friend you say? Drake questioned furtherly. Yes, a friend. You two might know her actually. We might know her, I wonder who she is. The Red Dragon Emperor thought with a frown, while her younger sister had slightly narrowed eyes trained straight ahead. Given that both Drake and I only know those of our own kind, that doesn't help for the most part. However, if we count the times we met with other dragons, then that would be about 20 or so. Here we are. Issei's voice broke both Albion and Drake from their inner musings. I hope you two have safe travels. And remember. No fighting unless you are sparring. Hi. The two dragons answered before they blushed in sync and averted their eyes from him. Also, Issei-kun, thank you for saving us back there. The blue-eyed woman said a bit shyly, but managed to look him in the eye. It's not like I'm thankful or anything. But I guess I am. So thank you, Issei-kun. Drake muttered and Issei couldn't help but chuckle at the two, which caused their blush to reach their ears. You know you two really are cute when you are thanking one. I wonder if that is always the case. I guess we will find out in the future. Either way, don't mention it. I did it to save my friends and I would do it again if another situation occurred like today's. But, what's going to happen now? God is dead and heaven will soon be in turmoil. No doubt they are going to blame you. They might even try to come for your head or worse the other factions as well, especially if they team up. Both Drake and Albion questioned, respectively. They aren't going to do anything. Issei-kun, I don't understand. It's quite simple, Albion-chan. It's fear. Fear? Yes, fear. They saw what I was capable of when I killed not only the remaining two Mayus, but also the biblical god. Combine that with my threat to the other factions, the killing of dragons will stop. For now. As long as they know that I am still here, the factions wouldn't dare harm an innocent dragon again. So, by not only killing God, but also by proclaiming your strength and might to the other factions, you not only discourage others from attacking you, but also from attacking dragons in general. Exactly, Drake-chan. That's genius, Issei-kun. That is admirable, Issei-kun. Yet, you yourself said innocent dragons, so I'm sure that others will find a loophole around your declaration. No. Issei wagged a finger at Albion and smirked deviously at the two. Once again, it's fear. I never said by their definition of innocence, but instead I meant mine. For their sake, they best be well aware of that. I understand now, Issei-kun. You really are a thoughtful dragon. Issei chuckled a bit and patted Albion on the head. Her reaction was instantaneous as she closed her eyes and relished in the warmth of his hand. Issei-kun. Drake whined with a pout at him. Laughing a bit, he used his other hand to pat her on the head as well. After a few more seconds he heard something that completely intrigued him. It might have been his mind, but after it continued for longer he was sure it was real. The two heavenly dragons were purring in delight. Albion-chan, Drake-chan. I didn't you purred. He said as he withdrew his hand, but the two dragonesses didn't realize that and kept purring for a few more seconds until they snapped out of their trance-like state. Giga. The green-eyed beauty put her head down in embarrassment. It isn't what it looks like, Issei-kun. The younger of the two simply covered her face with her hands. Girls, it's alright. It isn't that big of a deal. Why yes it is. It's a very affectionate thing to do in the presence of another person. Albion answered and Issei tilted his head at the two. So only female dragons can do it. Is it accidental or deliberate? Deliberately. Drake answered. That's fine, then. I don't mind at all, if anything it makes you both sound even more adorable than before. I wonder if I can make Red-chan purr. Oh, that would be absolutely precious. He thought with a mental smile, while the two dragons were trying to fight down their blushes. Well, alright. If you like it, then I don't mind doing it in front of you. Not wanting to be outdone, Drake nodding her head at him. I don't mind either, Issei-kun. I guess I can do it. If you want, that is. If you two are comfortable doing so, then I would love to hear it once again. he said with a smile and opened the front door. Well, it was very nice meeting you too. I will see you both soon. I look forward to our next meeting, Issei-kun. The dragon of domination said and gave him a quick hug before walking out the door. It was lovely meeting you, Issei-kun. By the way, your tea was absolutely divine. May we meet again soon. Albion spoke gratefully and lifted up her skirt a bit and gave a curtsy to him. Although before she proceeded out the door, she found Issei take her hand in his own. Lifted up her hand to his lips, he gently kissed her knuckles and gave a small bow in return. The pleasure was all mine, Albion-chan. A scarlet hue lightly decorating her cheeks, she nodded her head with a smile before joining her sister outside. Hearing the soft click of the door closing, the two siblings both looked at each other before their bodies seemed to vanish into thin air. The sound of running can be heard as the two were sprinting down the mountain at incredible speeds. Well, that was fun. Drake said with a grin as she flipped over a rock and landed before continuing her running. It was. He is much more dignified and proper than the other male dragons. Albion answered a small smile, recalling his manners just minutes prior. Don't kid yourself, Albion. There isn't a single male dragon out there that is like Issei-kun. True, not only did he save us, but also helped out the other dragons in general. So unlike the others. You like him, don't you? Of course I do, and so do you. Then. Drake smirked at her opposite in mischief. Why don't we team up? You heard what he said before, right? Together your powers are a recipe for disaster. That was basically him hinting that we should team up. Also, if we are going based on draconic instincts here, then he will most likely recognize us more, since 2 is better than 1 when it comes to mating. So we would have double the chance of getting his attention than any other women, like Tiamat. I don't see why not. Now that I think about it, even though our powers are like night and day, they also complement each other. Hahaha, I would have never thought this morning that I would ever think of pairing up with you. Neither did I. But this may be the beginning of a good partnership between us. Now, we should get to flying if we want to reach our homes before nightfall. Yeah, we should. Albion nodded and was beginning to go into her dragon form before she felt a sudden burst of energy and turned her head to see Drake already 20 meters ahead of her. Brace you there, little sister. Without waiting for a reply, the red dragon flew off at high speeds. Such a troublesome older sister I have. The silver-haired woman said, but a smile was etched on her face as her own energy caused a spiral to form around her. Once it dissipated, a white dragon flew out from it and went in the same direction as the other. Issei-kun, stop. Tiamat's voice can be heard shouting from the house as Issei can be seen chasing her all over the place with a teasing grin on his face. Tia-chan. Hold still. I just want to pet you. He hollered and finally tackled her on the floor and began to give her a very affectionate head rub. The sound of the Chaos Karma Dragon purring can be heard throughout the whole house that afternoon. That's it, guys. Thanks for watching and supporting us. See you in the next part.